In 2005, an awkward, shy-looking teenager stood on a London street corner, his guitar case open, playing for busy passers-by, going about their days. He was a nobody. Within a few years, he had transitioned from street corners to small pubs, where his sets rarely lasted more than a few minutes. Most people there were too busy drinking to notice the weird-looking kid with the ukulele. He spent the next few years grinding his way through tiny venues across England. His material expanded from nervous 3-minute sets to confident 10-minute performances, then 20 minutes, then 30. Each ignored song slowly simmering into something special. Things were looking up for him at home. He was attracting a small cult-like following that loved his passionate, unique, and authentic performances. But he knew if he wanted to make it big, he needed to do something radical. That's why, in April 2010, he decided to leave the safety of his home behind and try his luck in America. He moved to Los Angeles, where no one knew who he was, no friends. He didn't even have a roof over his head, let alone a guarantee of success. He began scouring the city for open mic venues, just hoping someone in the industry would notice him. And one day, he struck gold. Someone heard him playing at some random club and saw his talent on full display. He invited him to perform at a club called the Foxhole. He got up on stage with his ukulele, and after a 12-minute set in front of a room full of world-class musicians, he received a standing ovation. For the next 6 weeks, he was given permission to stay on the owner of the club's couch as he tried to find his feet in the music industry. The owner of that club was Jamie Foxx. And the performer? He's now one of the biggest pop stars in the world, selling out stadiums all over the world and writing well over 20 number-one hit singles. His name is Ed Sheeran. Now, I'm not the biggest Ed Sheeran fan in the world. I think he's really talented, he's really cool, I think he's got a nice personality, and his music is pretty good, and I respect him massively as a performer. But despite my personal tastes, I have to admit, the guy has got balls. Making it in the music industry with connections is hard enough, so to do it without having any connections whatsoever, and just do it through sheer brute force is really impressive. And when you combine the fact that he's ginger and he did it all with an acoustic guitar and without having a band or any of this stuff, it speaks volumes of his determination as well as his talent. And it's stories like his that make me question what it takes to actually stick with habits for the long term when things aren't going your way. I don't know if you know this, but there was literally a time where Ed Sheeran was sleeping in tube stations or outside Buckingham Palace. This guy did not have an easy ride at all. There were so many times he could have quit and gone home and tried to do something else, but he didn't. Not only that, he had to deal with the nerves of actually being a performer, just hoping that they'll like his music. If you think about Ed Sheeran, he's actually quite unique in that respect. He didn't have a band. When you're in a band, you have other people you can rely on. The Beatles were famous for having stage fright, and they were all terrified whenever they performed on stage. But because they had each other, they were able to provide that support and that assurance that they could get through it together. Ed Sheeran doesn't have that. Even to this day, I believe he goes and does these massive concerts in stadiums, and it's just him. It's just him on stage with an acoustic guitar in front of tens of thousands of people. And he's always been by himself. So this raises a question. Why is it that some people like Ed Sheeran can stick with their habits? How is it that he's able to keep going while most of us lose motivation and completely give up? And how can we design our lives to pull us towards our goals, as opposed to one that pushes us further away? Well, people have been asking these questions to themselves since the dawn of human time, or at least societal time. And it seems scientists have finally come up with an answer. And if you understand it, it could change your life. It's called the Goldilocks rule. Let me explain. You see, if you want to stay motivated, you need to do something counterintuitive. You need to challenge yourself. Because believe it or not, humans actually love challenges. The key is, the challenge needs to be doable, not impossible. For example, most people would find performing in front of 100,000 people with just an acoustic guitar to be terrifying. It would give most people an existential crisis. But Ed Sheeran can do it, and he does it all the time. Why? Because he didn't start off performing in front of massive crowds. He started by himself in his bedroom, all alone. When that got too easy, he graduated to his friends and family, then to playing on the streets for strangers, busking, then pubs, then clubs, then shows, and so on and so forth, until now, he can perform in front of 100,000 people with his eyes closed. But if you notice, he was always facing challenges. One level of venue was progressively harder than the last one, which meant he had enough of a challenge to keep himself motivated. Another example James Clear uses is tennis. Imagine if you were to play tennis against a toddler. How fun do you think that would be? It would get pretty boring pretty quickly. Why? Because there's no challenge there. You're gonna win every single point. It's gonna get so boring and repetitive, and you're gonna want to quit because it's just not stimulating enough. But if you were to play Jannik Sinner right now in his prime, you'd want to quit for completely different reasons. You wouldn't be able to return a single one of his shots. He would destroy your will to live on a tennis court. Why? Because on the flip side, Jannik Sinner is too hard of a challenge. He's the opposite end of a toddler. He's a guy who is the best in the world. One is too easy, the other is way too hard, borderline impossible. In order to have a good game of tennis that you're fully engaged with and you're actually enjoying, you need to play someone who's at a similar level to you, preferably a little bit better than you. This is known as your optimal challenge zone. And it's enough to keep you completely focused on the task at hand. In this example, it's playing tennis. You're not bored from beating the toddler to a pulp, and you're not traumatized by playing a tennis god. Instead, you're in the perfect zone that complements your abilities. James Clear and many other scientists call this the Goldilocks rule. But it also shares many similarities to Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's concept known as flow. In fact, they're borderline identical, just with different terminologies. The Goldilocks rule states that humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. And Ed Sheeran's music career is the perfect example of the Goldilocks rule in action. Each year he played music, he was always expanding his comfort zone and increasing his skill and abilities. He was always pushing himself forward, whether it be conscious or not. Even though his experience was not a cakewalk, he experienced enough victories on a consistent basis to keep him going. And he made just enough mistakes to keep him focused on his craft and not lose his edge. If you want to learn how to stay motivated to reach your goals, then there's something else you need to understand. Without it, you will miss the crucial piece of the jigsaw puzzle that puts everything into place. And it's all about finding that combination of hard work and happiness. Look, the fact is, working on things that are both challenging and engaging can make you happy. As psychologist Gilbert Burns puts it, one of the important sources of human happiness is working on tasks at a suitable level of difficulty, neither too hard nor too easy. This is flow in a nutshell, and it's the Goldilocks principle. It's what athletes and elite performers call the zone, where everything in the world fades away and all that exists is them and the thing they're doing. To reach this state, you don't just have to tackle the things you can personally handle. That's part of it, but you also need to measure how you're getting better. Jonathan Haidt, another psychologist, explains that in order to make flow work, you need to get immediate feedback on how you're doing at each step. Why? Because seeing yourself improve in real time is massively motivating. I don't care what kind of crack you're smoking, there's no better drug than progress. Think about Ed Sheeran again. Ed Sheeran would know if his song was hitting as soon as he played it. He'd be able to gauge the audience's reaction and get real-time feedback immediately. With each round of applause, his confidence would grow stronger and stronger. Even if times were hard for him early on, that kind of consistent positive reinforcement would be enough to get him through those hard times. Now granted, you're not going to get the same level of immediate feedback when you start creating things. But either way, you need to keep this in mind, you can't forget this, because it's extremely important to measure how you're improving, if you want to be motivated and happy that is. In tennis, you know if you've made progress if you win more points. In music, you know you're making progress when people start vibing with your performances and your tracks. In writing online, you know you're gaining progress if people are sharing your work and your following is consistently growing as well as your views. The truth is, how you measure progress doesn't actually matter. All that matters is you do it. For whatever reason, the brain needs to see progress if it wants to stay motivated. If it can't see any evidence of growth, it's just gonna go and want to do something easier. If it's blind to your successes, all it's gonna be seeing is failure. I'll be honest, this Goldilocks rule, this flow state thing, it's something I needed to be reminded of recently. I don't know if you've watched any of my previous videos. If so, welcome back. If not, it's good to have you. But the truth is, I've been in a bit of a rut. I made around 40 videos when I first got started, and I worked really hard. I was just full throttle going for it. But eventually, I don't know what it was, I don't know if I burned out. I don't know what happened, but the point is I stopped. I had so much intensity, I had so much energy that I was putting into these videos, and it all just vanished, right? I don't know if it's because I got bored of the videos I was making. I don't know if it's because I wasn't challenging myself. I was taking it easy. I was just doing stuff that was simple, that was in my comfort zone that I could already do. Maybe it's because I wasn't monitoring and measuring how I was actually getting better or how I could make my videos better. And part of it is because I just didn't like what I was writing anymore. Basically, I stagnated. And because I stagnated, I stopped making them entirely. This is the first video I've made in maybe a month. It's been quite a while, actually. But the good news is, I am back now. And I know if I want to keep making videos, if I want to keep staying motivated, I need to use the Goldilocks rule as well. To sum up, motivation is not a mystery. Just follow the Goldilocks rule to consistently get into a flow state. And don't forget to measure your progress. That's literally it. Do this, and I promise you'll be able to write for the rest of your life. Will it be as easy as I've made it out to be? No. Just like Ed Sheeran, you will have turbulent times that you'll need to get through. And things will not always be smooth sailing. But if you're consistently challenging yourself and you actually have a way to measure how you're getting better, you'll be in a much stronger position to stick with whatever it is you're doing. So that's it. I hope you found this useful. Links in the description.